And it is now 7 o'clock. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wattsburg Area School District, where we are student-centered and future-focused for a world-class education. The regular board meeting of the Wattsburg Area School District Board of School Directors is now called to order for September 21st, 2020. If there are any citizens wishing to address the board this evening, I ask that you use the question and answer feature. Please provide your name and your address. I would just like to announce again that the board met in executive session after the work session meeting on September 14th for the purpose of discussing a negotiations matter involving the WEA regarding the cyber MOA and the FFCRA paid leave. At the conclusion of the executive session, no further business was conducted. I would ask at this time if you please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Blazer.
Present.
Mrs. Farrell.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Present.
Mr. Mattson.
Here.
Mr. Paris.
Here.
Mrs. Bekevich.
Here.
Mrs. Pound.
Here.
Mr. Pushtrack.
Here.
Dr. Pushtrack.
I'm sorry, here. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the addendum.
So moved, Jeremy.
Josh, second.
Any discussion on the agenda or the addendum? Hearing none, voting to approve the agenda and the addendum as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. Mrs. Newford, did we have any minutes to approve? Because I noticed the approval of agenda and approval of minutes was not on the.
We do have minutes. We had minutes from the September 14th work session and the August. I'm sorry about that. The August 17th business meeting.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the August 17th regular board meeting and the September 14th work session.
There a motion? Whole second.
Thank you. Any discussion or corrections to the minutes of August 17th regular board meeting, September 14th work session? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to school reports. I'd like to introduce Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Ken Berlin, for our school reports. Mr. Berlin.
Thanks, Dr. Pushjack. We have some special guests with us tonight at the central office. I am going to turn things over to Mr. Tarasovich, who is the principal of the Erie County Tech School, and he's going to acknowledge some exceptional students that recently graduated from the tech school.
Mr. Tarasovich, on behalf of the Board of Directors, welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me this evening. I really do appreciate it. I'm here because this COVID situation kind of takes the wind out of my sails this year. We usually have a big dinner, and it would have been this Thursday coming up, which is called our exemplary dinner. And at that exemplary dinner, we recognize students from the previous year and for their great work last year. And so what is an exemplary student? At the Erie County Technical School, it's a student that's been on the honor roll for all 4 quarters and also had perfect attendance. And again, it's very, very tough to achieve. Again, these students have really worked hard and been there every day. And then of course, with the high achievement. We have 2 students we're recognizing, and they're both graduates from last year, and I'm very happy to have their parents with me this evening. The first young man is Barry Murky. And again, I'd like to read a message from his instructor, Mr. Masello. Barry came to the Erie County Technical School in August of 2017, enrolled in our facility maintenance technology class. Throughout his career in facility maintenance, he led his class in carpentry, plumbing and piping fitting, residential wiring, commercial wiring, electrical motor control, welding, HVAC, and the use of electrical test equipment, excelling in the classroom and showing his tremendous work ethic in the lab. This is not to say it was easy, it just means that Barry worked hard. At the same time, he maintained a high level of achievement at Erie County Technical School. Barry was also the captain of the Air Force ROTC program at Seneca and did stage setup construction for Seneca Theater Productions. He always treated the students and the staff at ECTS with courtesy and respect, acted in a professional manner inside and outside the classroom, while, with taking time to help his classmates. His hard work and diligence paid off in October of 2018 when he was inducted into the National Technical Honor Society and became an active member in the organization. In the spring of 2019, he was offered a paid internship at the maintenance department of Gannon University. This internship transitioned to a co-op within the Gannon organization. Barry was given the opportunity to refine his skills by working with journeyman electricians, plumbers, HVAC technicians, and other skilled tradesmen. His work ethic and ability to lead to offer to full-time employment and added incentive of free college education in a degree of his choosing. As good as the offer was, Barry committed to the United States Navy and is now training. We're very happy to have Barry joining us. So again, when we talk about Wattsburg being a world-class program here, we've got somebody joining us that's going to be in the Navy and serving us, so we're very proud of him. But Mr. and Mrs. Murphy, I'd like to present to you our plaque. It says the 2019-2020 ECTS exemplary student, perfect attendance and honor roll, Barry Murphy, facility maintenance. So once again, that's our first student. Barry, congratulations. I've always been real proud of you. I wish you the best of luck and thank you for serving for us.
Buddy.
Congratulations, Barry.
Congratulations, Barry, on behalf of the board of the Wattsburg Area School District. We're glad you're able to join us virtually, and we certainly enjoy recognizing our students and alumni. And I hope mom and dad are very proud because we sure are as well. So congratulations, Barry.
I have one more family and we'll bring them on now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next young man I'd like to talk about, of course, we're very, very proud of him and just as well. He has been part of our automotive technician program at the tech school for 3 years. And once again, last year, he became part of our AYS, the Automotive Youth Education Systems program. So that means that he's been working pretty much full-time all through his senior year, and he ended up staying with Champion Ford Services.
Yep.
And he's working full-time right now for them. So again, what a great opportunity that Robert Spencer took from our school. And again, we're very proud of Robert. He's going to be starting his electricity training coming up. So once again, the same plaque reads just with his name, 2019-2020 ECTS exemplary student, perfect attendance and honor roll, Robert Spencer, automotive technology. So once again, Robert, congratulations to you. You're welcome.
Congratulations, Robert. We are very proud of you. And on behalf of the Wattsburg Area School District Board of Education, we certainly recognize you for not only your success, but also representing the district in your skills and abilities. And we're very proud of you. We're glad your family could join you today. And certainly we're always excited to recognize the great things our students and alumni do from the Wattsburg Area School District and Seneca High School. So congratulations, Robert.
Mr. Berlin, thank you for having me.
Mr. Tarasovich, thank you for coming to join us tonight and recognizing the students that we share. And it's wonderful to see you, Mr. Tarasovich. Take care. Mr. Berlin, anything else from your report?
That's all I have, Dr. Pushjack.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. We have one citizen signed up to address the board this evening, Mr. Steve Morvay. Mr. Morvay, after your comments, I'd just like you to please add your address into the question and answer feature. We need all names and addresses. We have one citizen to speak, and you'll be afforded 5 minutes to speak. Welcome this evening, Mr. Morvay.
Thank you, board, for having me again tonight. I guess I would like to just comment on the reopening plan and frankly, the start of school here. I certainly appreciate the yellow phase in that the K through 6 kids are allowed to go to school, and we certainly like those options to have that availability. And it certainly seems like that rollout program that has been instituted so far has been working out well. The drop-offs situation has been fine. The masks wearing students have all been taking care of that. Lunchtime classes, everything that I know about the program seems to have been working well. So I applaud the efforts, applaud all the plans that were in place prior to the opening, and then ultimately in the implementation of that. I guess then going forward, I would like to see if there's any way that we could advocate for potentially moving into the green phase a little bit sooner than the November 8th or November 9th date that was previously set. Now I see in the agenda that may be a discussion item for later on, so I'll just throw in my 4 minutes left of 2 cents. I guess I wanted to just reiterate the things that we had talked about previously about the benefits of in-person student-teacher interaction, as well as the just the socialization of students and the peer-to-peer review that they can receive. And this would be obviously for the 7 through 12 students that aren't in person at this point. I know those have been discussed previously as well, so I just want to reiterate those benefits that we have discussed in the past. And then ultimately, I know that we've been using the standard dashboard that the state puts together, and it certainly seems like the 2 data points that they were pointing to, which were the incident rate as well as the positivity rate, seem to be trending very, very closely to what would be deemed the green phase. And I want to just reiterate that is something that I think we were tracking and we were looking towards as a marker to use as a potential opening discussion. And I see that the positivity rate is now under 2. The incident rate is 13%, very close to the 10, and certainly the under the 5 for those 2 data points. So again, I wanted to appreciate the option that we do have with sending the K through 6 students to school, as well as having the options in the Fuel Ed as well as the district online. And I was hoping that if we were able to move into the green phase, that those options would still be available. They certainly seem to work well for some students, others not so much. And I know that there were some hitches with the rollout of the Fuel Ed or even in the district learning, but I think those have seemed to started to even out and work themselves out as well. So I'm just was looking to see again if there is some discussion, maybe that'll come out through the rest of the meeting today. If we can move into the green phase a little sooner. And I know there would obviously, you can't snap your fingers and start that, say, tomorrow. So there would have to be a plan in place. And I'm maybe interested to hear what that proactive plan to potentially move into the green phase would be. And then ultimately, we don't want to do any sort of yo-yoing. So obviously, we want to be cognizant of the factors that would be involved with going to the green. But we certainly don't want inertia to take over as well, say, well, it's just easier to stay in the yellow. It's just easier to stay in the yellow. And so therefore, not take that leap, which I don't think, again, is a leap. I think it's really just managing the plan that have already been in place. So, I was just, again, wanting to get my time. I appreciate it to say my opinion and perspective on going into the green phase. And I hope the board considers that, and again, at least considers it for this session and maybe for the session come October, that there could potentially be a plan in place, or maybe even sooner ultimately would be beneficial. So I appreciate your time, and thank you for the board for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morvay, for your comments this evening. We'll certainly take your comments under advisement. No other citizens have signed up to address the board this evening, so we'll move on with the agenda, and that brings us to Superintendent's report. The chair recognizes Mr. Ken Berlin, Superintendent of Schools. Mr. Berlin.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Pushchak, and thanks again, Mr. Morvay, for your comments. I'll pass a lot of that on to the staff because it was a real team effort to open the school in the yellow. And I can tell you that the teachers are probably just as anxious as the students to get back to a full reopening. So I think maybe I'm going to circle back. We'll talk about some assisting students here in a second, but it seems more timely for me to jump into a discussion about where we're at and considering reopening school. So Mrs. Kelly, if you could let me share my screen. Yeah, thanks. Give me one moment. Okay, can everyone see that slide? Okay, so this is just what we've been looking at, and these are the metrics that Mr. Morvay had mentioned. Just wanted to share these for anybody new to the meeting that hasn't seen this before. But we're looking for less than 10 cases per 101,000 and less than 5% positivity rate. So we are very close to that. In fact, there's a link. Show you that. Can you see my web browser, or is it still on the slide?
It's still on the slide.
Okay. Okay, so this is the Department of Health dashboard, and if I click on Erie, you can see, as Mr. Morley had mentioned, that things are trending down, and we're very close to that threshold. So, a return to school is looking very possible. The other thing, we're actually faring better than some. One more document. This is released by the Department of Education every week, and you can see that we've remained moderate. They don't have the numbers displayed here, but it was much worse in July than now. So we're like on the cusp of low, if that makes sense. Just about ready to go there, if things continue as they are. So that's good news. Get back to my screen here. Apologize for the delay. I have a lot of documents on my desktop. All right, so considerations for closing school, just some other things I thought I'd throw out there as we near a decision point. What does the opening of school look like in Pennsylvania? Well, right now, the Department of Ed is reporting that 25% of schools are conducting full in-person instruction. 44% are conducting blended hybrid instruction, like similar or a variation on what we're doing. And 31% are conducting full remote learning. So we are by and large, in the largest group of those three types of openings right now. So I fielded a lot of calls and emails asking the district to open school and bring back all the students, because virtual learning is just not as good as in-person learning. We all know that, and I understand that completely. I just wanted to share a couple perspectives because we're gonna be in this mode at least for another couple weeks, I would think, if not longer. Based on observations and conversations I've had with other superintendents, many high schools in the area are operating hybrid schedules that bring different cohorts of students into school just 2 days per week. These arrangements are far from perfect. The problem with the setup is that the teachers are not available to the students on the virtual days because they're teaching a different cohort of students in person. So the end result is that you get 2 days of instruction and 3 days of downloaded assignments with little to no teacher availability to assist on off days. So in comparison right now, our remote learning plan is 5 full days of contents and lessons with teachers available each and every day. This is not perfect either, but I wanted to mention this because a lot of communication I get, people, they frequently say what other schools are doing is better than what we're doing. But from my perspective, I really don't think that's true. I think ours is good, if not better, than some of the other online hybrid models. So what's best for students? All pandemic school arrangements with remote or hybrid learning are bad in my opinion. But I believe ours is the best of the bad options. To that point, many school districts are running alternating cohorts on a 2-day-a-week schedule with elementary students. So think about students ages 5 through 8, chronological ages 5 through 8, attending school for just 72 days out of the school year and doing online assignments for 108 days with little to no teacher interaction. I don't think they're going to learn to read as well as the arrangement that we have right now with them being back full time. But imagine a cohort of students with 72 days of instruction, ages 5 through 8, moving up through the school system and into the workforce. There's been extensive research into how children learn and how it's important to hit certain milestones at certain ages in reading, especially between the grades of 5 and 8. I can actually sum it up like this. Students in grades K through 6 learn to read. Students in grades 7 to 12 read to learn. So from this perspective, I'm confident that our temporary yellow plan with K6 coming to school every day and 7-12 online is really in the best interest of students. So that begs the question, when should we fully reopen? We should reopen when conditions warrant it. When the Department of Education released the red, yellow, and green reopening plans, I think we all envisioned the schools transitioning in and out of learning models based upon the colored phase of each county as declared by the governor or the health department. The reality now is that the Governor Wolf and Secretary Levine have put these decisions back into local leaders like school boards, but they provided recommendations for instructional models directly tied to a set of COVID-19 infection health metrics, which I just showed you. I realize the validity of these metrics has been hotly contested, but the fact remains they exist. What if we ignore these recommendations and fully reopen schools based on other criteria? What criteria would that be? Community survey, collective feelings, perception, number of concerned emails, insert the reason. Are any of these defensible in a full reopening of school if there's a large outbreak of COVID and students, parents, and teachers become very sick or worse? I don't know the answers to these questions, but I think they need to be asked and carefully considered in the decision to reopen. Transition is, was mentioned by Mr. Morvay, and I can share another document because we do have a transition plan. And I'll just share with you a rough outline of it. All right, just somebody give me a nod if you can see that. Okay, good. So I can tell you that moving the schools into this arrangement where we have 500 some elementary students scattered across 3 buildings, it took us weeks in the summer with a full load of custodians, a full shift and a day shift to do that. We had to move a lot of furniture, a lot of small student desks. So high school had bigger furniture. We had to move cabinets, books, technology. It was pretty extensive. And it's allowing us to operate very safely right now. But as was mentioned, moving in and out of the yellow is not something that we can just do and turn on a dime. So for example, if the board decided to go green at the October 19th meeting, the elementary classrooms would immediately start being moved back to their normal locations, because we have moved, I think, 90 to 94% of teachers are in a different area, a different room, a larger space, a double classroom, you name it. Everyone at the elementary has to get put back to where they should be. So we can start doing that in the evening, a couple classes at a time, with the teachers telling us at the end of the day where things need to go. It won't be perfect, but at least they'll be able to come in the next morning and teach in their regular classroom. So we have to think about it as a process. And then after the elementary rooms have been put back together, we've got to put the middle school back together, because we have half the students in the 7th and 8th grade wing and half the students in the 5th and 6th grade wing. So we got to bring the 7th and 8th grade, the students in the 7th and 8th grade wing down into 5-6 area, consolidate that like it normally is. Now, once that's done, the quarter ends about November 9th. So some small materials will be moving that week in the evenings. Cabinets of books, filing cabinets, some of the smaller furniture. And then we could do a final movement and placement on November 13th through 14th, have some maintenance and custodians work over the weekend. We would entertain volunteers that might want to help us. And then finally, we would take the January 29th workday and move that to November 16th, which is a Monday. So we've got the school essentially almost empty for a 4-day period there to do the final move and placement. The teachers come back and they have a day to set up their room, and the students will come back. So, I mean, that's kind of like what the timeline looks like. We could consider moving it back, but I wanted everyone to understand the nature of the move. And I also want to emphasize that it's kind of a one-time maneuver in the fall, depending on, when we decide to do it. Because once you do all that work, if there's some kind of spike or surge, we can't pivot on a dime. I think we'd have to go into all remote learning, red, for a period of time, while we look for another transition scenario in the calendar, and that's going to depend on how long the flare-up or the spike would last. So we'd have to make a decision. Is it worth going back to the yellow and moving all that material, or is it better to stay red online for a few weeks until the spike subsides? So just some things to think about going down the road there. So I guess I've taken up a lot of time here, and I apologize. We need to be clear that bringing everybody back on the campus will drastically reduce social distancing. And there's no two ways around it. There's a lot of things we can do to make it safer, to make it better. But at the end of the day, we won't be close to the CDC guidelines. With good mask wearing, that can mitigate it. With good hand washing, that can mitigate it. Not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. So where are we now? Well, we're at the end of, we're into week 3, right? And with anything new, time is needed to adjust, and we have adjusted, and we're still are adjusting, resolving a lot of the technical issues, material issues. The elementary students are really doing a great job, in the staff and their new learning environments. I mean, think about it. If you're a 3rd or 4th grader, you're in a big, huge high school classroom. They'll remember that for the rest of their lives, I'm sure. But in short, I think we're doing good at the current moment. So those are just my thoughts that I wanted to share. And then lastly, we can talk about student assistance. And I did invite Maria Vezda. She's our mental health liaison for the district. But we have a couple programs here.
Welcome, Maria, on behalf of the board. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Okay. Can you see the student
Yes.
assistance program form? Okay, so we have these in the school buildings. And I know they're on the website, but we'll put them in a better locale. But a lot of parents have communicated with myself and other staff that the hardest part about being home is the lack of the social. And a lot of students are having a difficult time dealing with that, and we certainly understand it. So just because we're in remote mode here doesn't mean that we can't offer counseling assistance. We can do that online. We could probably safely bring in a student and a counselor socially distanced because that works better for them. But the bottom line is we have resources. And I don't know, Maria, do you want to give maybe a 10-second overview of the SAP program?
Sure. I am the mental health liaison for the program. There's 2 sections, drug and alcohol and mental health. And this program's been around in every state and every county in Pennsylvania since 1984. And it is a confidential mental health program. It is systematic, meaning it's a process. So the school people identify a problem, a parent anyone can refer to the student assistance program. I often get students themselves will ask to be assessed. So it can be from outside the school, inside the school, administration, teachers. It's available in all public schools for children K through 12. There's no cost to the parents. It seeks to incorporate the parents in the process because that's very, very important in the team decision-making process. And again, the referrals come from everywhere, and it is an intervention program, not a treatment program. So by the time a student would be before me, I'm not doing counseling, I'm doing an assessment. And we use an online tool that the county and the IU have approved, and it's very confidential. And again, everything is with parent permission. A student wouldn't come before me without parent permission. So the program uses in-school supports and also referrals to community agencies. And again, everything's parent involvement and parent permission. This program is not a disciplinary action, and it can be assessed by contacting the assistant principals in the building, the principal's guidance counselor. Once I've assessed a student and talked with the parents and talked with the school team, then we make a decision if we want to agree to getting further services through drug and alcohol or mental health. And I would assist the family doing that and be the liaison between the family, the school, and the outside agencies. And everything we do are behaviorally based, and the interventions are data driven. So this program has been studied a lot. And again, I can't stress confidentiality enough. It is maintained with all state and federal laws.
Okay, thank you for that. I just tried to switch documents. Can you see the Sarah Children's Center?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the outcomes after Maria and the staff go through the assessment process is she might help the parents access outpatient counseling through a group like Sarah Reed. And I mentioned Sarah Reed because we have an agreement with them that we're a satellite office. So because we know it's hard for families to access counseling if they have to drive into Erie, because as everyone knows, we're big and spread out here. So they actually will work with the families and their health insurance, and we try to schedule sessions for students confidentially here at the school building, so it's easier to access. Did I miss anything, Maria?
No, I think you got it all.
All right, well, thanks for your explanation. That was pretty clear. Any questions from the board?
Andy, this is Tara. I have a couple comments, questions.
Yes,
about,
Mrs. Pound.
do you want me to start with this or go back to the opening?
Your
The
choice.
first topic. Okay. I'll stay on this one. This is really good information, and I'm wondering how many parents don't know about it and how we can be a little bit more proactive to get this data out to the parents and the students. Maybe there's like a service catalog or an option catalog that we can provide the parents, because I didn't know about this, so I'm sure many others don't either. But it's great information, and thank God it's here. So thank you very much for that. My other two questions I have were on the reopening. Can you mention in the beginning about how you think that our the hybrid program is better than all of the rest of the programs out there? Can you, what facts do we have around that? Like, how are we measuring how well we're doing? Because we can think we are good, but how do we really know that? What are the facts behind that? That's my first question. And then I lost the other one. It'll come to me. So go ahead. You can answer that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have weekly superintendent meetings, and what I'm reporting is what the other superintendents have told me. The ones that are on a hybrid 2-day-a-week schedule, they've not been able to schedule active instruction on the off days. So that comes from the other superintendents. And it's my opinion that what we're doing right now at the moment is the best of bad options. It's just my opinion based on my observations and discussions with other superintendents.
Okay.
Do
Thanks.
you remember
I
your
can't
other
remember
question,
the-
Mrs.
No,
Pound? Okay.
it's old age. That'll come back to me later.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Berlin regarding the topics of his superintendent's report? Thank you very much, Mr. Berlin, and thank you, Maria, for joining us this evening. We appreciate the continued focus on our children, as well as the best way to reopen schools when the time comes. So thank you for your report, Mr. Berlin. Moving on with the agenda, the chair recognizes Mrs. Vicky Bendig for the Business Administrator's report. Mrs. Bendig.
Thank you, Mr. President, for tonight. Starting with the treasurer's reports. General fund cash in the bank as of August 31st, 2020, $3,959,994.72. And I have a year-to-date budget versus budget to actual report. This is still as of June 30th, 2020. I will remind the board that there are no budgetary transfers that can take place in the current budget year until the month of October, 90 days after the start of the fiscal year. So we're still cleaning up and finalizing the accounts as of June 30th, 2020. I had auditors not on site, but working remotely for the whole week after Labor Day and continue to do that. They've been asking for documents and stuff, so they're working on our local audit, which I will remind you that they prepare our financial statements, and we will probably see those sometime in January once they finalize those. But Becca, if you could bring up the year-to-date budget to actual report for me, please. So again, this is as of the 2019-20 school year, and I know that I reported on it last month. I'm reporting on it again because there have been some final adjustments and some other items, revenue that has been realized that was for the 2019-20 school year. So I'll just call your attention again. It's the 100% of the fiscal year is over. You'll see that the real estate tax percentage is 101.46% collected. So we're ahead. And the reason that it's 101.46 is we only plan to collect 95% of the assessed values of the, because there's always some delinquents or people who don't pay their taxes on time or that kind of thing. So we don't want to over budget, over expect to have that revenue coming in. So we budget at like about a 95%. Moving down, I will show you the grayed out area under earned income tax. where the remaining balance is $202,500. That is still a large deficit due to COVID closures. If people aren't working, the district isn't getting the earned income tax that comes to us. Moving on to the state revenue that we had on the second page there. The basic, nope, you're good, Becca. Basic ed funding, we had budgeted a little bit less at the time that our budget was approved. They hadn't finalized our budgetary allotment for basic ed funding. So we got $92,000 more than what we had budgeted for. So that was a good thing. Transportation subsidy, we're always a year behind with that. So again, not knowing at the time of the budgetary approving that, we received $87,000 more than what we budgeted for that. Some other items that all the items in the black represent money in excess of our budget. So at the end of the year, it appears that we have received $88,748.11 more than what we had budgeted for the year. So that is great news coming out of a year that there was a lot of unknowns. So moving on to the expenses for 2019-20, I had a lot of budgetary transfers last month to kind of clean up some stuff. And then we had some expenditures in the instructional that had to be posted back to the 2019-20 school year. So I do have a budgetary adjustment for you to approve when we get to the finance section of the agenda. This is mainly focused on the accruals for the insurance. So at the end of the year, if we don't accrue enough for our insurance payments, we have to realize that expenditure in the same year. So those are a lot of the changes that happened in the instructional that drew that into the negative $135,000. And then the guidance services, that was insurance as well. A couple of special ed instructional purchases. Most of the categories have remained unchanged. And Becca, if you could go to the last page, at the very bottom, it does show that the estimated amount that the budget was underspent prior to any final adjustments from the auditors is about $519,000. So we should be seeing some adjustments when the financial reports are prepared, where we will have a option to move some money from unassigned fund balance into a committed fund balance for whatever the board deems appropriate at the time. So moving on to the capital projects treasurer's report. Capital projects cash in the bank as of August 31st, 2020 is $1,068,882.08. This is a combination of the bond proceeds for the stadium complex renovations and our capital projects checking account as well. The bond proceeds are in a separate account, but they're all considered capital projects, so I show them all on the same treasurer's report. And then the cafeteria fund treasurer's report, cash in the bank as of August 31st, 2020 is $191,568.33. It's a good thing we have a healthy fund balance because the statement of revenues and expenses for the cafeteria profit and loss report are not showing a favorable return at this point. Becca, if you could bring up that cafeteria profit and loss report. I just would like to show you that as of for the period ending August 31st, 2020, we had $58.72 in revenue. It was just interest that had come in. And then the expenses for the month totaled $18,905.96. So the cafeteria is completely funded based on monies coming in from students purchasing lunch. So because we didn't start school in August, we missed an opportunity to get funding and subsidy from the state and federal government for food that we would have served in August. So we're just another month behind of being able to get money coming in. That being said, the USDA did approve that anyone who serves food under the seamless summer option during the summer, which we did actually during COVID closure and throughout the summer, we are able to serve all meals for free through the end of December or until funds run out. And that we were told that that was just for 5 days a week. So last week, the USDA announced that it's not just 5 days a week. We're going to be able to serve meals to our students 7 days a week. So the people that are signing up to receive food online, that pick up, that we do a curbside pickup on Tuesdays and Thursdays, those instead of getting a 2-day pack and a 5-day pack, they're going to be getting a 2-day pack and a 3-day pack. They're going to be getting a 3 and a 4-day pack. So they'll be getting 7 days worth of meals. All of those are reimbursable to the district. So every meal that goes out the door, we're going to receive funding for. And we're currently trying to work out a plan on how we can get meals to the elementary students that are here in the buildings, how we can get them sent home with food on Friday for Saturdays and Sundays. We have not worked out the details of that, and we've got to have a couple weeks in advance notice so that we can get enough food in here so that we can prepare those meals to send out. So more information about that will be forthcoming, and that'll be going forward. So as of right now, as of August 31st, the cafeteria has a loss of $18,847.24 for the month of August, which brings the year-to-date loss to $22,539.12. Okay, moving on to the bill lists. Exhibit A1 are checks written from the last board meeting through the work session. Those checks total $69,044.95. Exhibit A2 are checks written between the work session and this board meeting. Those checks total $30,173.51. And then the board, Exhibit A3 are the general fund bills, invoices and checks for your approval tonight totaling $554,306.63. Cafeteria board, Exhibit B1 are cafeteria checks that were written from the board meeting through the work session. Those checks totaled $569.72. And then cafeteria bills that were written between the work session and the board meeting is one check totaling $6,960. That actually was for our implementation for Primero Edge, which is our new point of service software that we're using in the cafeterias. This software is a one-stop shop, so it helps the state program that we have to use for student eligibility and direct certification for allowing students to have free and reduced lunches. It ties it in with our cash register, so we don't have an extra export import from 3 different systems all into one. It's all in one place. It's also tied to the school cafe app and login that parents can have access to. They can have access to the menus, to their students' accounts, see what their kids are eating, make selections ahead of time, those kinds of things. So it's been a godsend, in my opinion, a really good, helpful tool. So that was due before the board meeting, so we did go ahead and pay that. Checks, Exhibit B3 is cafeteria bills. The cafeteria bills for this month is just the check to the nutrition group, and it's $7,603.26. Exhibit C is the capital projects fund bills. There is just the payment to Keystone Sports Construction for $622,060 $85.61. And then a check to Connecto Electric for $3,500. That was for the fiber optics. So the total for that capital project fund bills is $625,585.61. The Seneca High School activity report, there was little activity, some interest coming into the student body account, and some payments going, or some deposits into the yearbook account. So little activity. Obviously, there's not a lot of activities going on around campus outside of that, but the total in that account is $63,152.27. And that is all I have for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bendig. I'll entertain a motion to approve the reports, payments, and invoices as presented.
Marty, so move.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Any discussion for the business administrator? Any questions for Mrs. Bendig?
Hey, Andy, it's Julie. I have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Pikevich.
Is there any way to open up the times for the pickup of food, like say earlier before people go to work so they can grab it on their way to work, you know, to take it home when they're finished with work, or possibly after school? Are there other options for times? I've heard a lot of people having a hard time coming just between 10 and 10:30 if they are at work. So is there any option for that?
We haven't had a lot of people come out and ask for that. So again, if we don't know that it's a problem, not sure, we don't know that we need to fix it. So we can certainly talk about that. If we had it earlier in the day, it could pose a problem for preparing the meals. We'd have to have the cutoff for the sign up sooner, so that we could have enough time for staff to prepare the meals. If we have pickup later in the day, say in the afternoon, then we would have to have staff scheduled to work those times, which we could do. We just haven't explored that yet. So I can certainly look into it and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on the business administrator's report?
I had a question, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Blazer.
Two things, Vicki. Thanks for those reports. Looking at the year-to-date budget to actual, so if I interpreted it correctly, it looked like we had received just a little bit over 100% of our revenue and yet spent 85% of our expenses. I guess my question is that typical? I know with the pandemic, everything is a little bit off kilter, but this being the first sort of full year as me being on board, I wanted to see how unusual is that, and is that something that we hope to see in the future?
So it is not typical. Normally we receive right around what we've budgeted for. Sometimes we do receive a little bit more because we are pretty conservative in our planning. We don't want to expect to get in $500,000 that never shows up. And due to the COVID closure in March, we put out to most of the staff to please curb any kind of spending. If there were things that were needed for instruction, they were certainly allowed to do that, but there wasn't really any extra spending due to the fact that we didn't know how long and what a big of a hit the loss of earned income tax and other funding was going to be throughout the end of the school year. So we had a good 3 months where we would have normally been spending and purchasing items and doing maintenance items and that kind of thing that are planned throughout the year, but we kind of slowed down on those things just so we didn't end up with a loss at the end of the year.
Thank you. And my other question was about Northwest Savings Bank. I believe I saw in the Erie Times News that they were slated to close their Wattsburg branch. I wondered, how does that impact us? I know we have signing, and I believe that's our main office. Does that impact you? And if so, do you even know when that is taking place?
So yes, I did see that, and our accounts will probably be transferred to the Union City branch because the branch manager in Union City has been overseeing the branch in Wattsburg for a couple of years. They've just had an assistant manager that's been running the branch. We've not had any issues with our accounts, and still have that kind of thing. So I know that they're talking about the branches closing on the 15th or the 17th of December. So we'll probably need to make some kind of decision about where our weekly deposits are going to go. We do have an armored truck service that comes and picks up our deposits on Tuesdays to take them to the Wattsburg branch. So that will change because they'll have to take them to a different branch. So we're still looking into what that's actually going to look like too.
Thank you. That's all I had.
I have one last question.
Yes, Mrs. Lee.
So this is going back to the MA Access program, and Vicki, you may or may not know this answer because I know it's a complicated program, but I imagine that that program is also taking a hit funding wise because the amount of services probably went down with COVID, with students not being in school and with providers not being allowed to interact with students. So have you seen any type of trend yet where MA Access funds are trending down because of that? That might even be a Knappenberger question as well.
I haven't seen that so much because it does take a period of time for that funding to come in once that's been turned in. So I don't know, was Mrs. Knappenberger, was she going to speak?
I can if you'd like.
Go ahead.
As far as the school-based access funding, you know, it is delayed, and you know that from being at the IU. We do log for students, and we do also for speech and language, occupational and physical therapy. So it's an ongoing process, and we've been doing teletherapy, and that has been billable.
Okay.
So as far as school-based access from last year, we've got the OTPT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech and language that we've billed for. The only thing that did drop off would have been the personal care attendant and the transportation.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Thank you. I was just curious about that.
Andy, this is Tara. I have a question.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
Vicki, on the cafeteria profit loss, and I'm happy to see that we are in the black and everybody like abided by our guidance to not spend as much. So what caused the loss, and could we have done the same thing as the teachers and curbing our spending to not have a loss? I mean, how did it, especially when we are getting the grants? So how do we have a loss when we're getting paid by the state?
So this cafeteria profit and loss is as of August 31st. And if you'll recall, when I was talking about the report, we get funding when we serve meals. If we're not serving meals, we're not getting any money. So in the whole month of July and the whole month of August, we still have our contractual obligations to our food service company to pay their bills, and we still had to have training and to gear up for the start of school. So that was what the expenses were in those months. I'm hoping that now that we're in September and we're encouraging everyone to eat because it's free to everyone, that the number of meals that we're getting out the door to families and that we're serving to our students in the school, that will boost our subsidy so that we can make up some of that loss in September. There really isn't anything that we can cut out of that spending. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So for the, you know, I get the contract that we have to abide by. Did that company get any funding from the state for themselves so they didn't have to charge their customers for whatever we paid for? What was that for? People serving food, or what was it for?
I don't
Like,
know.
what are we paying the other company for if we're not serving any meals?
So there is quite a bit of planning that goes into planning our menus and offering choices to our students. So we're paying the administrative fee and the management fee and the salary of the food service director that we've hired them to do. So
Okay.
she's still planning menus, ordering food, taking inventory, getting our personal staff, the district's staff, trained for the upcoming year, making sure that they have everything that they need to move forward. There have been a lot of menu changes and substitutions because there's simply the food is not available. Like we can't get lunch meat right now. There's a nationwide shortage of some of those items that we normally would serve in a school. So we're having to make decisions when she goes to place the order and they say, well, this turkey is back ordered for 3 weeks. Well, then if the menu item is supposed to happen on Thursday, she's having to make a change in the middle of the week to plan for what are we going to serve on Thursday because we can't get what we're planning to serve. So there was a whole shift right before school started when she planned the menus and went to order it. So there's a lot going into making sure that our kids are getting fed and they're getting the options that they need.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the reports, payments, invoices as presented. Voting to approve the reports, payments, and invoices as presented for the business administrator. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries. And thank you, Mrs. Bendig, for all of that financial information. Moving on, we have nothing under legal advisement tonight, and we'll move on to finance. The chair recognizes Mr. Marty Pushchak for finance. Mr. Pushchak.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 3 items on the agenda under finance tonight. F1, to approve the monthly budgetary transfer from the budget versus actual report as outlined in Exhibit E. So moved.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on F1 budgetary transfer? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
Moving on to F2, looking to approve the transfer of funds from the committed reserve fund, specifically the outdoor stadium complex renovation contingency, to the capital projects fund in the amount of $165,817.62 as outlined in Exhibit F. So moved.
Second, Jeremy.
Thank you. Any discussion on F2, the transfer of funds? Hearing none, voting to approve. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Pushchak.
Yes.
Mr. Blazer.
Yes.
Mrs. Sparrow.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Mattson.
Yes.
Mr. Paris.
Yes.
Mrs. Bekevich.
Yes.
Mrs. Pound.
Yes.
Dr. Pushchak.
Yes, motion carries.
F3, looking to approve the sponsor-to-sponsor agreement with the YMCA Erie as outlined in Exhibit G. So moved.
Nicole, second.
Any discussion on F3, sponsor agreement with the YMCA? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
That's all I have for the agenda under finance tonight, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pushchak. Chair recognizes Mr. Josh Paris for Buildings and Grounds. Mr. Paris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one item this evening, B1, the athletic change order. Approve the change order 6 under Exhibit H. So moved.
Second, Jeremy.
Thank you. Any discussion on the athletic change order?
Andy, this is Tara. Can we just bring up Exhibit H so everyone can see it?
The change order are the 4 items listed under the contract is changed as follows: 1, 2, 3, 4. Any further discussion?
It's Josh. I'll just note that the drainage for the softball and baseball fields has been removed.
Thank you, Mr. Paris. Any further discussion? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Paris.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Jeremy Blazer for personnel. Mr. Blazer.
Thank you, Mr. President. First item is P1. I'll note on the addendum that we do not need to vote on any Kelly substitute additions, so I'll remove that from the agenda. Item number 2 is P2, the service personnel substitute list. Motion to approve the names listed on the addendum.
Any discussion? I'm sorry, second, please.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P2 service personnel substitutes with the 1 name added on the addendum? Hearing none, voting to approve P2 on the agenda in the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P3, appointments. The motion to approve the following appointments: Rebecca Hayner as long-term substitute elementary, and Jenna Wright as high school special education learning support teacher.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P3 appointments? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P4, tuition reimbursement. Motion to approve the tuition reimbursements as outlined in Exhibit I.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P4 tuition reimbursement? Hearing none, voting to approve P4. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P5, conference requests. Motion to approve the conference requests listed on the agenda and on the addendum.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P5 conference requests with the 1 addition on the addendum? Hearing none, voting to approve P5 on the agenda and the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P6, motion to accept the following resignations as listed on the agenda, as well as the resignation on the addendum.
Is there a second for P6?
Julie, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the resignations? 2 on the agenda and the addition on the addendum. Hearing none, voting to approve P6 on the agenda and the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P7, job description. The motion is to approve the student assistance program case manager job description as outlined in Exhibit J.
Second, Julie.
Any discussion on the job description? Hearing none, voting to approve P7 job description. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P8, Cyber Academy MOA. Motion to approve the Cyber Academy MOA between the Wattsburg Education Association and the Wattsburg Area School District.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on P8, Cyber Academy MOA? Hearing none, voting to approve. May we have a roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Mr. Blazer.
No.
Mrs. Farrell.
No.
Mrs. Lee.
No.
Mr. Mattson.
No.
Mr. Paris.
No.
Mrs. Pekevich.
No.
Mrs. Pound.
No.
Mr. Pushchak.
No.
Dr. Pushchak.
No, and the motion is defeated.
P9, leave request to approve the family medical leave of absence as listed on the agenda.
Second, Julie.
Any discussion on P9 leave request? Hearing none, voting to approve P9. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
P10, termination of employment, to approve the termination of employment of Cody Seymour.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, voting to approve P10, termination of employment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And that is all I have tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blazer.
Andy, can I ask one question, please? Sorry.
Mrs. Pound?
If you go back up to the top, can you remind us why we didn't have to vote on the one we crossed out?
There was no service. I think there was nobody added to the list for substitutes. That was on the addendum. It was crossed off.
Okay,
Only
okay.
substitute position.
Okay, thank you.
That line item is just, it's almost a standing line item because we almost every month have candidates to approve.
Okay, thanks. I couldn't remember.
Yep, just no Kelly substitutes to approve this month. Thank you again, Mr. Blazer. Chair recognizes Mrs. Amanda Farrell for policy. Mrs. Farrell.
Thank you, Dr. Pushak. 2 items this evening under policy. The first being PL1, the second reading, to approve the second reading of policy 338, sabbatical leave as outlined in Exhibit K. So moved.
Second, Jeremy.
Second, Tara.
Thank you. Any discussion on PL1, second reading? Hearing none, voting to approve PL1. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
The second item is to approve the first reading of the following policies. Policy 103, discrimination, sexual harassment affecting students. Policy 104, discrimination, sexual harassment affecting staff. Policy 247, anti-hazing, and policy 248, bullying and cyberbullying.
Second, Jeremy.
Thank you. Any discussion on the first readings of the 4 policies listed on the agenda? Hearing none, voting to approve PL2, policy first readings. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Farrell. The chair recognizes Mrs. Julie Pikevich for curriculum. Mrs. Pikevich.
Thank you, Dr. Pushak. I have one item under curriculum tonight. C1, a motion to approve the updated district phase reopening health and safety plan in Exhibit P.
Josh, second.
Thank you. And just a reminder, this is the simple update of the policy with the mask language from our previous meeting. Each time we have some update, we must reapprove the plan. That's the only item that's changed in the plan. Any further discussion on C1, the updated district phase school reopening health and safety plan? Hearing none, voting to approve C1 as presented on the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Pikevich.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Mrs. Tara Pound for technology. Mrs. Pound.
Thank you. I have nothing to report this time around. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Pound. The chair recognizes Mrs. Nicole Lee for transportation. Mrs. Lee.
I have a couple of items tonight, Mr. President. The first one is T1, transportation of non-public students. Motion to approve the transportation of non-public students during the 2021 school year, provided such non-public school students would, absent public school closure, be entitled to free transportation under Section 1361 of the Public School Code, and also provided that WASD is operating in the green or yellow phase reopening plan. So moved.
Josh, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the transportation of non-public students? Hearing none, voting to approve T1. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Second one is T2, transportation agreement. Motion to approve the 2020 transportation agreement between Erie County Office of Children and Youth and WASD as outlined in Exhibit Q. So moved.
Second, Marty.
Thank you. Any discussion on the transportation agreement in T2? Hearing none, voting to approve T2. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
A couple more. So T3 is the OCY Memorandum of Understanding. Motion to approve the Office of Children and Youth Memorandum of Understanding as outlined in Exhibit R. So moved.
Dooley, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the OCY Memorandum of Understanding? Hearing none, voting to approve T3. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And last one, T4, Durham drivers. Motion to approve the addition of Christopher Evans and Britley Skinner to the Durham bus drivers list for the 2020-2021 school year. So moved.
Dooley, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on T4, approval of the Durham bus drivers? Hearing none, voting to approve T4, Durham drivers. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries.
That's all I had tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee. The chair recognizes Mr. Sean Matson for athletic and extracurricular. Mr. Matson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple items under athletics and extracurricular this evening. AE1 is the athletic resignation. A motion to accept the resignation of Jason Patterson, 7th grade girls basketball coach, effective August 26th, 2020. So moved.
Dooley, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on AE1, athletic resignation? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
AE2 athletic appointments. A motion to approve the following athletic appointments. Winter spring coaches for the 2020-2021 school year as outlined in Exhibit S. And Colton Hoffman as 7th grade girls basketball coach for the 2020-2021 school year. So moved.
Dooley, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on AE2 athletic appointments?
Andy, this is Tara. I have one question.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
If we go back to the Colton Hoffman thing from last week, as I understand it, based on Steve Carter's explanation that he was able to appoint instead of putting this job out for people to bid on, we get an explanation of when that is allowed to happen and when we have to post? I'm confused at the difference.
Who would like to take that one?
I'll pull up the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin.
While you're doing that, Ken, is that on almost all of the contracts or is it just specific ones?
We have one contract with the teachers union that includes all of the supplemental and coaching stipends.
Gotcha.
So it controls all.
Okay. This is good understanding because I don't know the rules.
It might take me a moment here to find this.
And where you're still looking for the AE2, the athletic appointments, all of these are separated. Why do we have the winter spring coaches and Colton in both? In AE2? Why aren't they separated?
Because they're athletic appointments. They're all athletic appointments.
I see. Gotcha.
And if there's ever a time when somebody would want to separate that out, we could certainly do that when we approve the agenda.
Mrs. Kelly, I need to share my screen. So here's part of it. When vacancies occur during the period beginning 3 weeks prior to the beginning of the season activity and ending with the end of the season activity, posting of the vacancy will not be required until after the conclusion of the season activity. During this period, the district may fill the position at its discretion with a qualified temporary appointment. Association members may submit to the superintendent a letter of request for consideration to be kept on file in anticipation of any such vacancy. So the purpose of this contract language is to minimize disruptions to the sports teams when there's an unexpected or untimely resignation.
Perfect sense. Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. Any other discussion on AE2 athletic appointments? Hearing none, voting to approve AE2. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
AE3 extracurricular appointments. Motion to approve Sherry Nukowski as the team leader, grade 1 for the 2020-2021 school year. So moved.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on AE3? Hearing none, voting to approve AE3. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
AE4, the game help list. The motion to approve the addition of Julie Pikevich to the game help list for the 2020-2021 school year. And we have an addendum of adding another name, Bernie Cage, to the list as well. So moved.
Amanda, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on AE4 on the agenda and the addendum?
Andy, it's Tara again. Sorry.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
For Julie, I know that this is going to be voluntary like we talked about last week. Do we have to note that anywhere just for a CYA type of thing if anybody ever asks because she's on the board?
I don't believe so, no. That's understood that board members do not get remuneration from the district.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on AE4? Voting to approve AE4. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
AE5 volunteer list. A motion to approve the following as additions to the WASD volunteer list as stated below. So moved.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the volunteer list? AE5. Hearing none, voting to approve AE5. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And then I have one more item on the addendum, which is AE6, the game day protocol for tickets. Motion to approve the game day protocol for tickets as outlined in attachment 1. So moved.
Second, Tara.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Can we show that just for the
Yeah, please.
participants?
Andy, this is Amanda. I do have a question while that's being opened.
Yes, Mrs. Farrell.
I don't recall, and I apologize if it's in there. How are tickets? I know that there was numbers outlined that visiting teams would receive. How are those tickets being distributed to the visiting teams?
Mr. Berlin, should we recognize Mr. Carter or Mr. Miller?
Yeah, let's start with Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I can take that question.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
You're welcome. Every visiting team is going to have a different number of athletes on the team. So we're going to get with the athletic director or the coach of the visiting team and then determine how many extra tickets we have for them, and they will be forwarded to the athletic director for their distribution, however they see fit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Miller, could you just give a quick overview of this document?
Yeah, I mean, really, we looked at all the different sports that are going on this fall, Mr. Carter and I, and we really sat down to look to see what necessary personnel, had to be there, and then look to see how many of our own parents, we could invite or have the kids invite to the events, and then basically took any if there were any leftovers for some of the outdoor events, and we'll offer those to the visiting team. But there's typically not a lot, especially for football. There's going to be a few more for soccer and things like that because there's fewer participants, fewer referees and game managers needed for those events. So that leaves a few more tickets for the visiting team.
And are we charging admission for these tickets, or are they complimentary?
No, all the tickets are complimentary this fall.
So that will impact our gate receipts and revenue from our athletic events.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion from the board or questions from the board?
This is Tara again. I have a question for Mr. Miller or Mr. Carter. What
Yes,
was
Mrs. Pound.
what was the reasoning to give, and I'm not disagreeing about giving the tickets to the opposing team because that's a great gesture. A lot of the schools, especially the ones that we've been to so far, none of the visiting teams, parents or visitors are allowed in at all. What was the thought process that you went through to say we could have the visiting team come through?
Mrs. McClure, would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Well, I wasn't part of the discussion about how you were going to distribute tickets, but the district is required to distribute tickets in a non-discriminatory manner, particularly in light of the decision in Butler versus Wolf. And I think that was your approach. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just for the record for everybody, we don't charge for any other sport but football. So that's the only revenue you get from the gate because no other sports are charged to my knowledge.
We do charge for volleyball.
Right. Yes. No, I was thinking the outdoor only.
Any further discussion on AE6 game day protocols for tickets? We certainly thank Mr. Miller and Mr. Carter for putting this together for us and whoever else had input.
It's Josh.
Mr. Paris, yes.
So if this passes tonight, it goes into effect starting tomorrow.
That would be my understanding, Mrs. McClure.
Yes.
Tomorrow, once it's approved today, right? Or actually at conclusion of this meeting.
Correct.
Do we have this is Tara, do we have anybody playing on the field yet? Or in the gymnasiums for games?
We do have the volleyball team playing. Cross country had a meet. And I believe that was it for home events. We tried to push most of the home events to October when we'll hopefully have the stadium available to us.
Okay, so we don't have any home events coming up anytime soon, like you need to contact the other athletic directors ASAP, or have you already done that?
No, the first time we're using the stadium is, I believe it's October 2nd or 3rd. We have had a home volleyball game, but that's kind of, it's limited to 25 people, so there are no tickets to be given out at the home volleyball games.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, just the status of the field, that the target date, Keystone's trying to get it to us October 2nd or 3rd. And of course, weather is a factor as they finish that drainage plan. But the weather seems to be on our side right now, knock on wood, so that's good. So right now, the turf is completed on a football field. The track rubberized surface has been applied. So the next thing that happens is it gets painted. then they'll finish the fencing because they don't want to obviously get overspray on that nice black fencing. The baseball and the softball field turf is in. They're just finalizing its installation. So it's really coming down to paint the track, restoration of areas that have been disturbed, complete the retention, stormwater system, and install the fencing. So we're in a pretty good shape. Despite some delays we had this summer because of COVID and materials not being available, we're on schedule here. So that's good news.
Can you
Thank you, Mr.
scroll
Berlin.
down? Sorry, Andy, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Can you scroll down to the list again? I just want to see one thing. We had our, those are groups. Can you go to this? So we had our athletic trainer, and then I thought I saw another trainer or doctor. Maybe it's on the specific sports. Trainer Seneca, and then, no, it's not on there. I don't see it anymore. I thought I saw two trainers.
It's on the football list.
Yeah, so we have Seneca trainer, and then we have another trainer doctor. What is that? I'm just trying to save tickets for people, that's all.
That would be, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
That would be the other team's trainer for football. Both schools send their trainers to the games, and it's only for football.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion on AE6 game day protocols for tickets? Hearing none, voting to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And that's all I have this evening. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mattson. There's nothing under miscellaneous this evening. Erie County Technical School, Mrs. Nicole Lee for the Erie County Tech School report. Mrs. Lee, thank you for your efforts to recognize the two outstanding students this evening that we did. And do you have anything else to add for your report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of things. Earlier tonight, I was able to help arrange the notice tonight for those two students, so I was happy to be able to assist with that. I do have a summary from the August 27th ECTS meeting. There were two agendas for that meeting. One was for the ECTS Foundation, and the other one was for ECTS as the school. The foundation agenda, it was to review and approve foundation audit and financial reports where there were no findings. The ECTS school agenda, it was to review and approve ECTS financial audit reports. There was also no findings on that as well. We also reviewed and approved items related to COVID-19 policies, non-membership tuition pricing, and personal items and policies also in regard to COVID-19. At this time, a reminder, this is August 26th or 27th. At that time, the conversation was still ongoing regarding the start of construction and district participation in the shared costs for the new construction projects. And that's all I have.
Thank you for your report, Mrs. Lee. Any questions for Mrs. Lee from the board regarding the Erie County Technical School? Thank you. I'll recognize myself for the Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit report. Our August meeting was held after our last Wattsburg board meeting. Since that time, the IU has been assisting school districts with quite a high volume of COVID-related issues and technology-related issues and remote learning issues. That has been a lot of the time that they've spent. The IU reported that this summer, over 100,000 meals were served through the summer foods program, which we were a part of this summer. And then also an interesting note from the meeting, or from an update that we received as the IU board, statewide during the first 2 weeks of school, the average retirement of teachers is 42. During the first 2 weeks of this school year, the state recorded over 250 retirements. So we're going to see some issues with filling retirements statewide, and that is a concern. The next meeting for the IU is on Wednesday, September 23rd. So I'll have my September board meeting at our next board meeting. And the September 23rd IU meeting will be the last for the current executive director, Dr. Dean Maynard, who will be retiring. And then Brad Whitman will be taking over. And then that's all that I have. Any questions from the IU report? Thank you. That brings us to board correspondence and dialogue. I'll start out. I would just like to briefly continue our discussion about reopening schools. And Mr. Berlin, what might an earlier reopening look like, since the board had voted to not make a decision until the end of the first grading period? What might that timeline look like if we feel as a board that we would want to open sooner than the end of the 9 weeks? Would you mind commenting on that, please?
Okay, Mrs. Kelly, I need to share the screen. I'm just going to bring up a school calendar. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So our board meetings are on the second and third days of the month, Mondays of the month. So we were looking at making a decision here on the 19th, right? And then that gives us 1, 2, 3, and we would still be finishing up some transition here. Most of the school's empty because of parent conferences. We'd move the January 29th workday down here to the 16th. Schools would come on the 17th. It does require board action because we have to rearrange the calendar and approve the opening in the green phase. So, just thinking out loud, we could vote to waive the rules at the work session so that we could vote on a plan to revise the calendar and open the school in the green. So that would get us back. And I'd have to look with my team here and talk with the teachers union on the best weekend, but it looks like you could probably just back up, stay with the same kind of plan, back up the 13th conference to Friday the 6th, and then put the teacher workday from January 29th here, and then possibly have kids come back to school November 10th, which would be the first day of the second 9-week grading period. So we'd have to flesh out the details, but the plans are going to be similar to what I outlined tonight. We just got to make sure we can make the days work.
Sure. So the earliest would be a November 10th return?
Yeah, and I'm
logistically speaking.
I'm guesstimating that we can make those logistics happen.
I have a question, Andy.
Yes, Mr. Blazer.
So just to clarify, Mr. Berlin, that would move us up a week earlier than what you were projecting using the parent-teacher conference day and moving up that teacher workday. And I guess the other question is, what is a teacher workday typically used for, and will the teachers be impacted by moving that?
Okay, so I've been talking with the union president. Near as we can tell, the teacher workday at the end of the first semester was really put in place to help the transition on the 4x4 block schedule. When teachers would change from teaching 4 classes to 4 new classes for the second semester. So that gave them a day in between to make any adjustments in their class, get out new materials, new books, get things ready to hand out for the new classes they start the next day. So that is not going to be an issue here because we're running an A-B schedule. But that workday is included in the teacher contract, so it has to appear somewhere on the schedule. But my early conversations, WEA seems open to moving that to make a move happen.
Thank you, Mr. Berlin. The reason I'm asking my question is November 10th would be the current plan to return schools, because that's the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. So if people are asking to return sooner, is that a possibility to return before the 10th? Or is that the earliest possible day, which is our original plan anyways, to return at the beginning of the second grading period? That's why I'm asking.
You know, I'd have to go back and talk with the crew. I mean, what that would entail is essentially scheduling a special board meeting at some point in time.
Right, that's what I want to make clear is the current plan is to return if conditions are favorable based upon our motion to make a decision at the end of the first grading period. The original date, if all things and all metrics line up, would be November 10th, because that would be the first day of the new grading period. If people are asking to return sooner, that would take some more logistics and perhaps a special board meeting, which would be needed to change the calendar and then also change to vote to change the phase of school that we're in. I'm just trying to make that very clear for everyone at the meeting tonight.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate my caveat that, you know, once we do this, once you pull this switch and we're open, it's not going to be very easy to transition back to the yellow. You know, we you know, flipping it in and out and in and out and in and out, moving all this equipment and switching between. I mean, we changed the bus runs for this yellow plan. So I'm not opposed to opening, but in my mind, I see us going, yeah, the first 2 weeks of school are great. Infection rates are low. Everyone's still outside in the nice warm fall weather. And then we pull this switch, we go back just when the flu season starts to heat up. And then you can't separate flu symptoms from COVID symptoms without testing. Now you're getting in a situation where you could potentially be quarantining a lot of students. So I just want to get all of these thoughts out in consideration so that we make a duly informed decision. I mean, for all intents and purposes, if that flu COVID spike occurs, which they're predicting, that means, you know, we're going to have to shut everything down and go into the red and evaluate the situation at that time. And somebody might say, well, Ken, why don't you just flip right back into the yellow? Well, of course, I've explained that. But on the other hand, I've learned that in this COVID situation, throughout this whole thing, it does not pay to make decisions too far ahead of time because it changes extremely quickly. I mean, the guidance we get changes week to week. The CDC just changed their guidelines today, and then took it back down and said, oh, that was just a draft. But I mean, the point is, they keep changing, you know, the transmission level, distance, the amount of time, how effective masks are really at mitigating it. So you know, I don't want to talk too much. I think I've already talked too much already tonight, but you know, those are the things that keep me up at night. I just hate to see us get painted into a corner.
No, we certainly appreciate that, and we certainly appreciate you bringing us up to speed on what the situation is. And you know, people need to know that if we would change to go back to green, if the situation warrants it, it wouldn't be a quick switch back to yellow. If there would be an outbreak, the switch would be back to red, and that's remote learning for K to 12. So people are very aware of that. I want to make sure that everyone's, you know, as informed as possible. So thank you for allowing me that time. It's still board correspondence and dialogue. Anything else from other board members?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Tara.
Yes, Mrs. Pound.
On the same vein, so I understand all of that, but if we're in yellow right now, and we say we're going to go into green, say we just go with the date of November 10th and we're in green. If we go back into yellow, it's just as hard to move all of those desks and equipment and everything. So are you saying that if we go back in yellow after November 10th, we're going to go into red? Because you don't want to move all that equipment and desks and classrooms and stuff?
What I'm saying is you have to evaluate it at that point. What would the COVID infection rate level be? How long are the experts telling us they think it may last. You know, you have to use data to make those decisions. So, you know, just to assume that we automatically flip back to the yellow, and we don't know what that spike would mean or what the health department would recommend at that time. It's just a possibility.
Okay.
Anything else under board correspondence and dialogue?
I had one other thing I wanted to bring up, Mr.
Yes,
President.
Mr. Blazer.
It's unrelated to the current discussion about reopening, but I just want to recognize Ms. Beth Pinzock for her work. I think it was Michelle Brooks, Senator, that got us some extra funding, but anybody that hasn't seen the backside of the elementary school, I suggest you take a look. It's really an amazing transformation she's putting forth there. I don't want to discount anybody else that may have helped with her, but I did correspond with Ms. Pinzock and know that she's been instrumental in spending those funds wisely, setting up the outdoor classroom and the other amenities that have been added back there. It's really a sight to see.
Thank you, Mr. Blazer, for highlighting that. And yes, definitely kudos to Mrs. Pinzock and her team. That's a very neat learning environment out back behind the elementary center. Anything else under board correspondence and dialogue this evening?
Josh, I'd like to go back to the school opening discussion.
Sure, Mr. Paris.
So if we have to, let's say we go green, we see a spike in cases and we have to go red, it wouldn't necessarily have to be for more than a week or so to reconfigure the schools. It wouldn't have to be a 9-week process. Is that safe to say?
Mr. Berlin, you're on mute.
It would take a couple weeks, that's fair to say. Yeah, but my point has nothing to do with the logistics at that point. We don't know what the COVID situation will be. Because they told us we were going to go two weeks before in March, and that turned into, well, we'll know what that turned into. You know, so I'm just saying I think you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. Because what's at stake here is people's lives.
And if we go to green, do we have the transportation capabilities to get the students here?
We do. We have a yellow bus run and we have a green bus run. And, you know, I had said that earlier, everyone needs to be fully aware that social distancing on the regular bus runs is impossible. There's going to be anywhere from 40 to 60 kids on a lot of buses for an average bus ride of 51 minutes a day. So that's the greatest exposure point. And the high school schedule, changing classes every day, you know, there's only really, I mean, I've looked at it before from a scheduling standpoint. There's about 2 degrees of separation between every student in a high school schedule. Meaning, like, you know, the people in your grade that are taking classes similar to you, you know, you're only 1 or 2 contacts away from them because you've changed classes all day long, if that makes sense. So, you know, a spreading event, if it is going to occur, it's going to be due to the buses.